Good morning, everybody. September 8th. So any questions about anything, just simply start throwing them in the room. But there is a ton to go over here. So we're going to jump right into it. So let me just drop this link in here right now. Go Arete video and drop this in and go live now. So we have some serious data issues that we're going to go through. Most importantly, what we're going to have to focus on is just what's happening with the, really just what's happening with not only jobless claims, but what Powell's going to say. So, just FYI, I mean, that's going to be your entire day. You have the ECB and what they've done already, which is very simply just to, raise rates 75 basis points. There's not much to say about that. I mean, that's pretty clear what they just did. You have to see how we all respond to that move and kind of go from there. Now, I do think that you're seeing a decent holding pattern going into Powell, but you really need to see what happens there and how that whole thing plays out. And I don't think we know anything yet. So we're going to just kind of have to see how we do there. But, the fact that they raised rates the way that they did is their decision of 75 basis points is good. Continuing claims is down. The initial jobs claims number continues to be strong. So that's going to be an issue for us. Good morning, Bob. So that's definitely going to be an issue for us. Let me just put this in the headline so people can see this and then go. At 9:10 a.m. Perfect. All right. So what we're seeing here more than anything, and what I think is pertinent, a couple things. Number one, I think that you're starting to see a little bit of let me go to this page right here so you can start seeing what I was looking at this morning. I think what you're starting to see is a little bit of us in a holding pattern. And if we can hold some of these levels, let's get rid of some of these indicators as we take a look here. If we can hold some of these levels, I think that's really very important. Okay. So what I would like to see have happen is just go from here, click, and then just see us start to try to break these downtrends. And I think that we could start seeing that. The question really becomes, what happens today? How does the market react to what is going to be said by Powell? And what exactly is he going to say? So I think that's really very pertinent. And that's definitely where our focal point will be, off the open for sure. Since jobless claims came out, all we're seeing is a drop. So if you take a look right now, since that jobless claims number came out, let me just point this out and we'll get rid of all this that's on here right now. But let's just take a look at this so we can understand really what's going on out there. As this continues to drop, I mean, that's right after jobless claims. So it's no indication. I mean, it's pretty clear what's been going on, right? So whether or not that continues to drop or not remains to be seen. But you're not acting well after that number. Now, we're going to have to see how time goes on here. I'm not so sure that's going to be the theme of the day. And we're going to have to just see how we respond to his speech. So that's really the most important thing to go over. The indexes held yesterday and they bounced. I mean, there's very little to say about that. You literally held your level and made a higher high. Now, whether that holds, whether that gets you back up to, something else kind of wonky, let's take out the pre and post, whether that gaps you up and then brings you back down, I have absolutely no idea yet. But you are holding this level. So these lows are still possible that this is the low. We don't know that yet. And we're going to have to, give it a little more time here. These are notes from the newsletter. If you don't get the newsletter, there is a free version in there as well. Some of the signs that I use that I find really interesting are lethargy. So what do I mean by that? There's so many people that are just bowing out, like don't want to be bothered with it anymore, don't want to trade anymore. That's definitely something that I watch. I watch how people respond. I watch also the chatter that goes on social media. Is it active? Is it not active? And right now, you're not very active. And that's definitely going to affect, sentiment. And that's really what the market does, right? It'll wear you out. And that's what we're saying. If you take a look at the VIX, you could never get through that 27 3/4 level. Maybe that's a good thing. I'm not so sure it is. But now you're starting to decline and you're starting to break down a little bit here. So I kind of like what we're seeing so far. It seems to be fairly decent. So let's see how we play out and we'll go from there. But overall, I think you're at a really very interesting point in the market. I don't think it's very clear that you're just going to keep dropping down here is where I'm going. If we could find some leadership, which we might be able to do, we could do okay here. So keep that in mind. But the lack of interest that I'm starting to see in the market from people, where they're like, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore, or I don't want to trade anymore, or the market's just always going to go down. That kind of lethargy, that's what bear markets do. They wear people out. And we're seeing that pretty clearly now. Major indexes coming up a little with VIX down, Dexcom 5 below, worth a look. Yep. So the names like, let me do DXCM first, but names like this, yeah, they could absolutely keep seeing some kind of rally. That's not really my kind of trade because you're so beaten down. So names like this, I tend to avoid. They're just not for me. It doesn't mean that it's not going to work. It's just not my kind of trade. But stuff like that, I tend to avoid. Some people look at that and go, well, I think I can get 10 points. And you probably can, and that's great. It's just not my kind of trade. So keep that in mind. It's just not really what I'm going to focus on. What I would like to focus on is I would just like to focus on exactly what we see going on out there. And what do I mean by that? Like, I want to see the things that are hitting highs, the trends that are going, and where the money's going. And I don't see it going into names like this for the long term. There could be a trade there for sure. If you look at like 5, yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to come out and you're going to put yourself in a position where you're going to, essentially, how can I say this? If you're going to put yourself in a position where essentially you're going to have oil collapse, which is what oil's doing. Crude's up a little bit, but you have this meeting tomorrow. As oil collapses, things could just keep going higher. People have to take into account that oil is a huge part of what's going on out there, an enormous part of what's going on out there. And that's really very important. Okay. So if you see that, the consumer is going to have more money. If the consumer has more money, that's why these names acted like tech stocks yesterday. I mean, look at BJ's. Probably one of the best days BJ's had in like a year. So, and you're not even doing it, on earnings. So keep that in mind. I mean, we saw that across the board, right? Walmart, these kinds of names. We saw all this, right? So when you see this, you pay attention to it, but I don't know. I don't know that you chase it. You might just want to hold off and see how it goes, right? For right now, anyway. You just might want to hold off and just see how that acts and then go from there. But that's really where my head is. So let's just see here. Yep. So that AMLX is definitely something I'm looking at today and will definitely be on my list. I think this is really interesting because people interpreted this data. Let's get rid of these indicators and all my lines. I like this one, John, and I'll tell you why. What I'm seeing happen with names like this, what we're really seeing is you're seeing names just completely be misread, right? So here the data wasn't going to be good. Here the data came out again. It wasn't going to be good. FDA panel goes, you know what? We like the data. So when you see shifts like that, you want to pay attention. That's a major shift. Now, how we respond to that shift remains to be seen. So what I would focus on are these levels right here, okay? Between 30 and 35. That's what I would focus on. I would focus on those levels. So today, just get your questions in early because I'm going to have to wrap this up at 9 o'clock today instead of 9:15. So just, but you're in that range. So I want to watch that first 15-minute range. I haven't seen it do anything yet. That's what I'm watching. There's a couple companies that had great earnings last night too, but you really just need to see how we open and how we're going to respond to Powell's speech that's coming out very shortly. So we're going to have to see that, but I like that. I had 10 calls. What'd you have? 10 of the. Yeah, I mean, like, look, you just stepped in it, right? Goldman came out and upgraded them today. They downgraded CSIQ and they upgraded this. I'd be real careful about buying stuff like this that's up 3-4% going into what's happening right now. If you could come back down to earth and test here and then maybe see if you could turn, that might be something. But this is an enormous rip since that bottom. It's so fascinating too, because these names never looked back. I mean, like, we pulled back when the market pulled back, but we didn't really pull back. Like, you had that day where you had the fake breakout. I actually looked at buying this back here, and then, we broke out, looked like we were going to go, and then it just ripped and just complete rejection. But you're holding that 123 really nicely. So if it could get back down there, that's an interesting spot to take a look at it. But, buying it up here, I need to come down, see if there's a trade, go from there. But this is definitely the space that we're seeing. I just think you're going to see a lot of volatility this morning because of Powell's speech, and we don't know how it's going to go. So we're going to just kind of have to, expect a lot of volatility. And I'm not sure I'm going to be buying something that just happened to go up 15 points in a day. You have to look at this stuff for what it is. And let's just kind of go through this so people get it. I talked about this yesterday, and this was one that I actually tried to short because these kinds of shorts have been working. But, this is what you're dealing with. Okay. 4 minutes, right? By the time this is done, it's called 10 minutes. The entire move of the day is in 10 minutes. And you're seeing that constantly in these names. Someone mentioned STEM, and, I was looking at these names, and the moves, the move in this stock, the move in all these names is happening the first 2 to 3 minutes. And then you're grinding higher. Like, okay, so yeah, you could have made an extra 50 cents, but the real money was just made buying blindly off the open. And that's really hard to do unless you have a whole system in place. There's a way to do it. There's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, but you need to be really cognizant of that. Like, you're seeing these huge moves, but they're taking place within 5-10 minutes, and then they're done for the day. So people are chasing those, and it's not going to work out very well. So I think if I was in those calls, I'd probably hold them, see how it does. What's going on, Bob? Hey, Michael. What's going on, Chuck? Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Michael. So what I would do, here's what I would do with STEM. And I would just say something to you. You're going to see a lot of people get washed out right now. Okay. You're going to see a lot of traders that you're friends with get washed out right now, because I see that you're talking about taking a loss. Okay, this is when people have to really buckle down and start learning the craft and understanding it's a skill set. And it's not who's got the hot picks that's a waste of your time. It's a question of, can I develop the skills that make this a profitable and consistent business for me? And that's how you have to approach it. Why am I saying that? Because everybody wants to trade and everybody's a genius in a bull market. This is when you start developing your skill set. So there's nothing wrong with taking a loss, right? I take them all day long. Anybody that's telling you that they're not taking losses is just simply lying, right? They're just not being honest. So if you take that into account, you have to build your system around that. Now, something like this, like the STEM, yeah, I'm watching it. I'm watching this level. I mean, I would not be short. Like, just to be clear, if I'm down in something and it's not a call, I'm not carrying them overnight. I'm very apprehensive about that. Okay. I'm really very apprehensive about carrying things like that overnight that are not working, whether it's long or short, because once it doesn't work, the trend could change in a heartbeat. We're looking like we're going to head higher here, but we don't know that. right? Every time we look like we're going to head higher, what happens? The bottom falls out. So I would set a stop and go from there is how I would do it. Now, I have this 16 level up here for some reason, but for me, if I was just looking at this on an hourly chart and I was short, Michael, I think my line's really very clear, right? Like as soon as you're in that, you know you're going to gap fill. So at this point, you're basically just waiting for like 16, right? I mean, that's really where you're at. But on an hourly basis, every bar is green. The majority of the move is the first 5 minutes, right? That's when you probably got hit, and then just grinds higher all day and it wears you out. And that's what it's doing. I don't see anything here that's telling me I got to jump into this, but it could work. I mean, you have a downward trend line here that's been broken, and now you have this cup, and you can argue that you're shorting a handle. You can make that argument, right? I mean, everyone can see that, but we'll clone those lines real quick because you're supposed to clone them so that you can take a sense of what's going on in there and just seeing if it sits somewhere, and it kind of sits in here, doesn't it? So you kind of have a cup here, kind of a handle, right? Maybe you break out of that and go higher. So, I mean, that 16 level is definitely something that I have on there for a reason. And there it is. And I knew I had it in there for some reason. So you can see that level right there. And so I would watch how you flip here and see how you act. That's where I would be. And where my focal point would be if I was short that, Michael. So, but the complete lack of interest this week in trading, I'm telling you, when you start to see this, and it's from doing this for years, it becomes it's a huge flag to me that, hey, you might see a bounce here, because that, the market tries to figure out how it can make fools, out of the most of us. And that's one way that it can definitely do it, right? Just going out there and just reversing on us. And then what we're looking at doing. So keep that in mind, but it's definitely a trying time, and I'm really trying to hammer that home today, because I know a lot of people are out there struggling, because I get a lot of emails on it. But for me, just watch, just be careful. Even with Europe dropping, with rate hikes, China, COVID restrictions, dollar high, hawkish Fed. Yep, they are. And you need to pay attention to that. Like, you need to pay attention, right? I've been saying that we're not going to break the bottom, right? This has been my war cry since this happened, and everyone was telling me how obvious this was. But what my point has been is, I'm not so sure that we do see this. I'm not so sure that happens. The one thing that people are not taking into account at all, is they're not really taking into account. Let me just show crude. Oh, they have futures here now. Let me see what this looks like here. No, I need a new agreement to do this. TrendSpider just got futures, which is going to make my life a lot easier to show some of this stuff. We'll have to get those agreements later. Let me just see if I can find the old one I was using. I don't think this is going to let me do what I want to do with it. Yeah, this will work. So what I want to point out is just the pattern. Forget the numbers, right? Just show you the pattern on this particular system. You're breaking down. Energy's breaking down. Okay. 2/3 of GDP is controlled by energy prices, right? I forget what the equation is. I forget if it's every 10. I used to know these equations cold. It's every $10 that oil drops is like 3 basis points or 30 basis points to our GDP. It's something insane like that. So it's not a small number, right? And that's really where I'm going with this. Like, you have to think about it from that perspective. It's not a small number at all. So, it's definitely something where you want to take a look at it, but we'll see how it plays out. So, and then kind of go from there. Now let's just keep going and getting through these, because there's a ton to do. But if oil drops, the SPY's going higher. I mean, last night's video, I put this equation up there for people to see it. Like, I put the correlation up there. There's no way that you're not going higher if oil drops. It's just that simple. So, yeah, they're hitting highs. They're both hitting highs. Agreed. You're welcome, brother. Let's go there. SPY. Yep. What's going on, Beast? So I think you could push here. I mean, this is a level that you could push at. You have some things that are really lining up here. Look, I'm going to save everybody a lot of time right now. Okay. You're seeing a lot when these people are coming out with long calls right now. This is what everybody is using. Everyone's watching a 5 SMA right now. Some people can say they're watching the EMA. That's fine. I mean, I can just show you with the EMA too, but I use an SMA. Some people say I use an EMA because it's faster. It's faster until it's not, right? It's faster until it's not. When you're dropping precipitously and you want to catch the turn, it's an SMA, right? When it's rallying and you want to see when it's going to break through first, it's the EMA, right? It's different times, different things, different tools. Sometimes you want a hammer. Sometimes you want a screwdriver. If you think about it that way, it makes a little more sense. But what you're seeing here, right? You're holding in there and everybody's watching that. Couldn't this go higher? Yeah. Yeah, it can. It absolutely can. You have a speech coming up in 20 minutes that's really going to affect us. And we're going to have to see how that goes and how that whole thing plays out. But that's where my head is with it. So, we're just going to have to see. Now, in regards to everything else, let's just keep going and rocking and rolling here. Asan, yeah, Sean, there's definitely a play there. So, again, we're gonna have to start wrapping these up at 9 o'clock so I can prep in the trading community before the market open. And I want to be there for the Fed today for sure. Names like this, yeah, they can absolutely rock and roll. This was a great quarter. There's very little to say about it. I was watching it after hours. That little trade that we do over 15 minutes, you can see how it acted perfectly there. Look at this on a 1 minute, right? And let's break this down. Okay. And let's get rid of this indicator to clean it up. I mean, that whole move, this is what I keep saying. This whole move happened in 3 minutes, right? So people are trying to catch these moves and then they're buying after the fact, not understanding that the real move is happening in 3 to 4 minutes after hours. And then you're catching the scraps, right? So you almost have to be reading the news, seeing it's good, printing it, and then just getting stopped out if it takes out the low and just going from there and not playing with it. You need to be really careful if you're going to trade like that. You can trade that way, but you have to be really careful. Do I think there's something here? Yeah, I do. I think that this was a great quarter. It's like all these names, Sean, they're coming out with great quarters and then they're rolling. Now, I'm not so sure that they stay down. I'm not so sure that Snow stays down, right? I'm not so sure of that, right? Started to get your reversal yesterday on that bar. Now, if you look at the indicators and you put your 5 in, it's the first day above it in about 2 weeks, right? Since August 30th. So these are things that you want to watch. These are things that you want to pay attention to, okay? So definitely it's on my radar today. Thoughts on Lulu? Yep, there was a short there and then it actually rallied. With retail doing what it's doing and with oil prices dropping, that's a huge move. That's a really big move coming out of there. So I'm actually giving this is on a short list. I'll just be very candid with you. I'm giving it a day or two to see how we settle in here. But I'm very interested in this. It's on a short list. I'm a little worried about Powell's speech, which is why I didn't go kind of ham on this already. And again, I had a short, I would like to, go from there. Hold on 1 second. Let me just clean this off. Yep. So that's a little moving average right there. I think it's down here. I could probably get rid of them all. All right. Remove all manual VWAPs. Perfect. So you're setting up perfectly here. And you really are. And I'm watching it very closely. Yeah. I'm watching it very closely. I'm watching the volume. I'm watching how they flushed everybody out down here. And these kinds of bottoms, they're marked, right? So here, look, see that earnings and then boom, right? So when you have these kinds of flushes, they can mark a bottom and you have that here. Now you have that, dragonfly pattern right there. Hard to play a dragonfly going into earnings, right? You're just basically gambling. But when you see something like this and you kind of see it start pointing up, maybe there's a shot there for that to really go if the market continues. And look at this. So I got to remember that I'm short on time today. But what you're seeing is something like this, right? Where you're here and you're going to that level and you're wedging in there. And you got to see if you're going to break higher. You're really at a very critical level, but getting above that 200-day is huge. Now the question is, are you going to stay there or are you going to roll back down at this level? Well, this looks very similar to what the indexes did when they rolled back down. So just be careful. Just have a stop on it, right? And let's just run through these. Yep. Please hit the like button. It helps me greatly with the algorithm. I can't stress that enough. It definitely does help me with that. What's going on, Timo? So let's go through these. Let's go take a look at net. Yep. So these are kinds of the names. Let's get rid. We can leave them on for now. These are the kinds of names you want to watch. You got right to that 50 and you bought, and we know who buys at the 50-day, right? Who buys at the 50-day? Institutions. So if you know that you're getting some support there. Now, this has a ways to go and tons of levels to get back through, but earnings were good. So if software is going to turn, that might be something that you might want to have on your radar. It might be something to look at. I'm just going to leave these moving averages in for now, but you might want to look at this. I would definitely have it on my radar for sure. This is what you want to see. You want to see is holding that 50 and trading up. Reminder, whether you call it a bear market or whatever you want to call it, you can see huge swings now. Let's do Tesla. Tesla, you're going to have to watch like a hawk today because Tesla had, it's down 65 basis points now on the Qs, down 60 basis points, 40 basis points on ES. But like Tesla, like names like this, right to resistance, trying to hold. See how they hold today. But I like names like this, and I think that these could do exceptionally well. This has huge relative strength, and you could easily trade back up to this 200-day. I think you can get back up to here to 300 if this market gets going. This is what you're looking for. Okay, this is what you're looking for across the board. Are they buying at the 50-day? If they're buying at the 50-day, that's institutions. It doesn't mean it's going to last, but if you see that happening, that means that they're putting money to work and you have a 50 that's pointing up, right? So keep that in mind. That means you are seeing some institutional sponsorship. What's up, Matt? AALPTCT. I really wouldn't do this. Could it work? Yeah, it could, but it's not really my kind of trade. Maybe you can get back up to here if that's what you're shooting for. There might be $2 there. That could work. ETCT. I like this one way more. Like this is the kind of pattern that's working right now. These are the kinds of patterns that are working right now. That makes a lot of sense. That makes way more sense. And you can see how they're doing it, right? Consolidation, breakout, consolidation, breakout. Just watch that level I have right there. But that makes a lot more sense, Matt. Good morning, Films. Yep, you're welcome, Michael. Just keep it in mind. That's how people are looking at it right now. What's going on, Timo? What's going on, Sean? Yeah, we're going to go over that whole earnings call in a couple minutes in the trading community. I just want to just kind of look at it and understand that, yeah, you're dropping a little bit here, but that was a great quarter. And I would remember that was a gret quarter. I wouldn't, rule out that this was not a solid quarter. So keep that in mind. I really like the quarter. So we'll talk about it. ZS, what's going on, DJ? Let's take a look at ZS, and then we will go from there. Yeah, anything like this that's below your 5-day moving average, I would just watch right now. You have a bear flag going there. It's not exactly what I would want to see. So I would take a look at that. I'd stay away from that. Yep, we can. So this is where my head is, and I'm just going to tell you this right now. I still have an SQQ position on, but it's not looking great for me, right? Like I'm up a little bit today. You're holding that 50, which you're really going to want to watch. You definitely want to watch that you're holding that 50, but you're going to have to just kind of see how that plays out, right? You really want to watch that. And, maybe we're going to hold, maybe we're not. We're below the 5. So you're going to have to watch that. And then you go, okay, well, where's TQQ? Well, TQQ is, trying to get above the 5. All right, well, maybe it's time to start looking at that one. So you're going to have to play them that way, right? I mean, that's how you're going to have to play these. So there's very little else you can do about that, right? And just keep that in mind. But it's leaning that way right now, that TQQ is where to go. So just, again, keep that in mind. Let's just keep going here. And again, before we wrap this up, please hit that like button. It does help with the algorithm. Hey, Jen, you need to stay away. In my opinion, I think you have to stay away from energy until tomorrow's meeting. Do you have a meeting tomorrow with the energy? They're trying to figure out what they're going to do about this huge margin call and problem out there. Until you have a solution to that, you don't know where energy is going to go. You have no idea, right? I mean, 1 minute it's collapsing. As I'm talking, I'm watching it up $1.50. So we just don't know where it's going to go or how it's going to act. So I'd be really careful with any energy trades until then. What's going on, Timo? Just, I'm completely out of anything there. The only thing I have is that coal. I have a position in coal, but, I don't even know if I'll be in that by the end of today, quite frankly. So, I mean, you're setting up, man. You're in the right space. There was a positive divergence down here. We were talking about that in one of the classes. You're trying to flip here. So you have to see if you flip and then if you can go, but you're in the right space. I mean, this is where it's at right now. And, look at this. You're just sitting in this bar for months. So you are setting up and you're setting up nicely. So just keep that in mind. That's not going away. It's much cleaner when you look at the weekly, but you could see 27 easy on that if the market gets going. And DraftKings and INMD. So let's go look at DraftKings. Okay. And so this is what you're looking for. Again, we just went through this. Are you above the 5? You are. Are you holding the 50-day? You are. Who buys at the 50-day? Institutions. These are very simple trades. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I tell everybody else. If you're not going to honor stops, don't do trades in this market. You will get slaughtered, period. You have to assume that your probabilities are going to be lower now than they were last year. It's just the way that it is. It's just the market environment. And if you understand that, then you're going to honor your stops and honor them fast because there's not a lot of meat on the bone to make money here. So you have to have tighter stops, not wider stops. That can work, Andrew. INMD. A lot of people looking at the beaten down names thinking that they went too far down. Same thing. You're getting there. You're getting there. You have a lot of baggage in here. You have a lot of baggage and no one's paying attention to it. If I look at my red days, they're all higher than my green days. So I would probably avoid that and then go take a look at something like this and see if you're seeing something similar. Yeah. So just be careful with them. But this one bothers me. I think it's all the wicks. I'm not crazy about it. All right, everybody, I need to jump and hop in the trading room. If you need anything, reach out. As always, you can always email me. Let me just throw that email up really quickly right here. If you're interested in the trading room, there is a preview link pinned, I think, in the comments. And it is also in the link in description. Everybody have a great day. Trade to win.